Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, man. No, I'm glad. I wanted to get somebody who's been doing some film and that kind of stuff.
I needed this huge payday.
Yeah, you're welcome. The coffee, anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So I was looking at your Facebook page, and this is going to be scattered.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I think.
There's a lot you probably don't know about me, because unfortunately we didn't get a chance to work together a lot on Paragods. And that's unfortunate, because when I saw you come into the cast, I thought you were extremely talented. You're very funny, very dry. It's kind of my thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wanted to try and do a scene at some point with you. The two people I wanted, I've worked with Chris Doobie, and I love Chris, and I was glad that when Sean asked me to write something for my character for the final season, we came up with this idea to kind of say goodbye to my character, and he put me on with Chris. I always wanted to work in a scene with Mike, and I know I'm going to butcher his name, Wiener.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think it's Wiener. I think it's, yeah.
Let's pretend it is.
Yeah, I'll just say Digger. So I always wanted, and I had a little interaction with him, but I thought it would have been cool for our sense of humor to play off one another, and your dryness and all that stuff, like there's no water in the bathtub, and get out, my lunch is in the truck, stuff like that. So, I have a memory that you have no idea. I still have auditions memorized from years ago.
Are you kidding me?
Unfortunately, sadly, no.
I have a friend who did theater in college, and he can remember the whole script.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember being in the play.
Yeah.
he can quote it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I never got into was theater. I did plays when I was a kid in school, but I was really, I was a kid. I was trying not to cry on stage, never mind, in front of a giant auditorium full of adults that are crucifying your every oh, his face didn't flinch the right way in that scene, I'm not believing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I was kind of I was sad that the Paragods came to an end. I was hoping it could have went further, but I think that this last season was probably the best looking season on film that I've ever seen. Just everything, the shots, just the way everything was done, and I think as you grow, especially as a YouTube program or any type of small local, well followed, well liked program like that, and you start to develop your niche, it could have gone much further.
Yeah.
And there could be a future movie or something. Who knows? You know what I mean? So.
Well, it had a nice maturity to it by season 5. When did you come in? Did you been there from the beginning?
No, not from the beginning. I had met with Sean about doing some stuff, and we had talked about actually a much larger role, and I just kind of wanted to keep it very small and simple, in and out, here and there. So, I'm sure you've seen, it's probably the question you were going to get right into when you were talking to me, but the Kevin James stuff, I've been compared to Kevin James since King of Queens, and we named my character Kevin kind of as a spoof, kind of a goof on the obvious, the big funny guy that does, acts like an imbecile, or falls asleep on the couch with a box of donuts in his hands, or talks about chicken wings. That was kind of where we were going with it, just to have a little bit of fun, just to be creative, because I love writing. I always have, and I still do. So, but that was kind of it, and I was in, I think, maybe 4 or 5 episodes, maybe episode 3, season 3, and then I think it was season 3, 1 or 2 scenes here and there, and then the final season, which was, I wanted to come up with something more serious, to take me out of the like full-blown like goofball comedy element.
Yeah, it worked.
And well, yeah, but I also didn't want to stray too far away from that by making the character Kevin not still be, you know, like when he said to me, you know, come up with something. So I came up with this thing, you know, all right, so come up with an idea for, you know, your character gets into a scuffle with a junkie. So I said, all right, great. So I pictured the call beforehand, and I came up with the, you know, it's better not be who I think it is, you know, he's got more frequent flyers than Logan Airport, and, you know, then it comes with the, you know, is he a flight attendant, is he a stewardess, and it's like, you know I can't swear on this show, I'm guessing, so.
This show?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
what am I going to do? I own the scissors, so.
Okay. Well, no, so, you know, I just said, you know, what, are you shitting me? You know what I mean? And that, like,
yeah.
Kind of like, what are you, a moron? Kind of like, you know, what do you mean? And then he's, you know, it's a frequent flyer, you know, he's got toe pain, back pain, you know, neck pain, he wants pills, he wants some type of high off of it, and he got it, and then we went to the call, and the call scene at the house, where you were at the house that day, yeah, so the call scene at the house I actually developed from a personal experience I had with my own father, who was an alcoholic when I was growing up, and my dad had thrown me across the kitchen and then picked me up off the floor and kind of like held me against the sink. So I kind of used personal experience when I was younger, and my dad's no longer here, so may he rest in peace, but, you know, we didn't have a super great relationship, but I took that personal experience, and then I just kind of like flipped it around a little bit, where I'm the aggressor and he's on the floor, and so I used that as a, you know, muse, if you will, and a lot of people responded to it like really well.
Yeah.
I was surprised, you know what I mean, because
it's a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, people always know that, you know, I've done double work for Kevin James on, you know, Grown Ups 2 and this last round for Hubie Halloween and stuff. I did some, but I've taken off enough weight where my shapes and face and this and that have changed to the point where, you know what, I chased a dream, and it's still like there and alive, but I lived it, and I accomplished it, and I loved every moment of it, and I'm so grateful to Kristen Barona, who was at San Diego Casting at the time, who's now at Central Casting, who believed in me and said, you know, I think you're the guy for this, and I want you for this, and I did it for like a month and a half total, I think, for, you know, from like midway all the way till the end of the summer, when we, you know, raised up the champagne glasses and said goodbye. And it was the highlight of like my life at that moment in time, because I had survived cancer a couple of years before that in my intestines, and it was like I proved everybody wrong. All those people that laughed at me because I did extra work on like Paul Blart Mall Cop, and then you have somebody on set that notices, you kind of remind me of Kevin a lot, you know what I mean? And we all got to talking, and it was just kind of like, you know, one thing led to another, and then I kind of like really pushed for it, and I achieved it, I succeeded at it, and I think that, you know, I think that the expectations as an actor, especially here in New England, can be rough sometimes, because, you know, you're like, all right, great, you know, everybody said I killed it, it was great, I had a lot of fun, and I impressed this one, and I impressed that one, and it's like, so you want to kind of ride that into the future and capitalize on that, and that's a very realistic thing to do, but it doesn't always work out that way, because it had been 6 years since they filmed Grown Ups 2, so in between that, I've done, you know, some principal stuff, some commercials, some, you know, web series, obviously, so, but I've also gone through a lot in my own life, you know, aside from that, so just trying to balance all of that and, like, not kind of lose it, if you will, and try and keep a level head, and you know, I try to be as supportive as I can of my acting peers in New England and anywhere. I've got friends in Los Angeles, I've got friends, you know, everywhere that are involved in the entertainment industry, and because I think that we as people need that reassurance that, you know, you're doing well. but I think some people seek it in ways that is probably not super healthy because...
You think?
Yeah. I mean, you know, when I first started out in this industry, it was purely for, like, fun. It was purely for, like, all right, I'm going to go work on the game plan. I'm going to go, you know, sit in the stands at Gillette Stadium and watch The Rock, you know, film a movie. And that's great. And then it goes from that movie to this movie to that movie. And then, you know, your extra work, you know, is piling up, and you've got a giant list of extra work that you've done. And some are more featured than others. Some you're standing at a bar drinking a beer and, hey, there I am. Or some you're like, oh, look, there I am. And it's, I think that the ideas that people have when they sign up to do any type of movie or on-camera work, if you will, is that, you know, it's their movie. They're starring in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it might be Ray Dudley's movie, but I'm working in it, so they call it my movie. So when I was working on my movie today, you know, I was with, you know, this one and that one, and it's I think that it gets a little twisted, which is unfortunate, because I think some people's expectations when they start out doing it is that instantly it's going to be, you know, driving around in Lamborghinis and popping champagne bottles and dating models and stuff, and that might work out for some people, but, you know, it doesn't always work out for everyone.
Yeah. Well, it's like athletics, right? I mean, there's a small percentage that make it to that point. I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah.
There's very few people who get to the Lamborghini point.
Yeah, but, like, let's take Antonio Brown, for instance. I was excited he came to the Patriots. I was pumped because he's talented. No matter what he does with his mouth, no matter how much he runs his mouth, he's talented. Put his mouth aside and his ego, he's talented. And now, you know, it's like he's posting pictures of him sitting on the hood of his, like, Rolls Royce SUV, you know, and putting these little, like, you know, hashtags, and it's like, you know, come on, man, be better than that. Like, you're a millionaire, you're a multi-millionaire. Like, relax. It'll be okay.
He's young. How old is he?
Oh, I don't even know.
20s, right?
I think so, yeah. But, and that's just it. You know what I mean? If you go from nothing to a lot of something, I'm sure mentally it takes a toll on you. It's very overwhelming. I mean, like, you know what I mean? I'll give you an example. I mean, for me, being a double for Kevin James is very exciting because, you know, to be compared to someone for a good portion of your life and then to work side by side with them is out of this world. But I think that people's ideas of what I can do for them in the future are a little, like, off. I'll give you.
Are you talking about friends or other people? Not like.
Well, not necessarily friends, but acquaintances or people you may become friends with on set. You know, I'll give you a good example. Like, I had somebody that, you know, wanted all kinds of pictures with me, dressed as, you know, on the Sandler movie, the last Sandler, and they added me on social media, and I'm like, all for that. Networking is great because, I mean, seriously, like, I've got something coming up in November that I was picked because I did a self-tape audition for a serious role in a short film where I'm the lead in it, and I'm pretty pumped about that. I can't really talk about it right now because I don't know all of the details, but it's from what I've been led to believe, a very serious role compared to what I've done as far as comedy. So I believe it has an unhappy ending for me, and that's about all I know.
Is it an independent? Can you tell us if it's an independent filmmaker or is it somebody?
Yeah, no, it's an independent. Okay. Yeah, it's you know, I was networking with a guy on social media. I'm not going to mention any names right now, and they know who they are if they listen to this, and that's the most important thing. And Chris Doobie actually had tagged me in one of his posts on, like, Hollywood, New England or whatever, and, you know, I was like, and I commented something back, and Chris was like, oh, you could pull it off. I think you could pull it off. And I was like, okay. So, you know, I this particular character is known for their political rants and rants about the government, so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. So I just took it a different way, and I did a rant on napkins in the drive-thru at like McDonald's. Who's controlling the napkin, distribution at McDonald's? When you go through and you've got a giant quarter-pounder meal, and you reach in, you grab those hot fries, and you reach back down into the bag, where's the napkins? Why didn't they put any napkin? You know what I mean? Like, I kind of just sort of, and I also added in some stuff about the Taco Bell sauce packets, but I just kind of like had fun with it. But you know what I mean? Like, the thing is that I created that. Like, what this gentleman will have for me on a script to read is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to prepare for that, and I'll have to, kind of make it my own, and I kind of immerse myself in things in a way, but not to the point where it's unhealthy. A lot of method actors, we were just talking, me and a friend of mine, Jose, were talking about method acting and how some people take it to an unhealthy level of, go ahead, kick me in the face or punch me in the chest or, whatever. And it's like you want to get pumped up, and I get it. Like, I get it. You want to be pumped up for that scene. But if you see that other people that are more experienced than you aren't doing that, and they're just like kind of looking around like they, looking for their lost change, and they're like, and then the scene starts and it's like they get right into it. I think there's a huge difference as to how everyone handles their own acting and stuff. Yeah. If you go to an audition and you see people pacing around out in the hallway or whatever, like, the good thing is now with a lot of auditions, you get the sides sent to you at your house. So I'll get the sides sent to me on the phone, and I'll read them, and I'll like try and figure out, based on what happens before my lines, how I'm supposed to deliver those lines. And sometimes I'm dead on, and sometimes I'm way off, and that's just life. Right. You're either right for a role or you're not, and that's the other thing that can suck sometimes in this industry, And I don't know. I'm gonna guess it's like that in New York, and I'm gonna guess it's like that in Los Angeles, where everyone's trying to cut everybody else's throat. So if I know that you're doing something that I probably could be doing, although you might have been chosen because they wanted somebody that's in their 50s or their, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, well, why couldn't I be doing that? Or there's times where I've been called in for something where, like, the guy's in his, like, mid to late 50s, and I'm, like, 46. When I shave my beard, I look like I'm in my 30s. And I'm like, why am I here? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can deliver lines all day and night long, but why am I here if if the director's gonna say, why is he auditioning for this? Yeah. Why bother? You know what I mean? And it blows my mind sometimes. And I know that there's a quota, I think, that has to be filled. Right. For bringing people up. Well, he's good at auditioning, and he always shows up, and he's a great character actor, so let's call him in, even though he's not in his 50s or 60s. Yeah. He's good, but, he won't get the part, but we'll bring him in anyway.
Well, they look good for bringing you in.
Right. Perfect example. Just recently, I auditioned for something 2 months ago, at least 2 months ago now, for a production that's filming here, and I let it go. Every time I do an audition, every time I leave a room, I think I'm the worst person that has gone in and out of there. That's just what I put in my own mind. Mm-hmm. All right, I was terrible, that sucked. Because then if you get a phone call or a call back, you're like, wow, that's great. You know what I mean? You're like, who, me? And then, so I'm sitting in my eye doctor's office, I'm getting my eyes examined, and my phone's ringing, and I'm like, oh, it's Boston Casting. I gotta answer this. And I was told that I was liked for something, and asked if I was available, and I happened to be on hold for a couple of days for another project for someone, and I said, yeah, sure, whatever we got to do, we'll make it, we'll make it work, and it didn't pan out. The shooting was changed until later in the year, like October, November, and I was like, okay, great. So maybe I'll hear something. So not that long ago, about 3-4 days ago, I was sitting in the parking lot, got the same phone call, and then I'm pumped. And whenever someone says, the director really loved you and really liked you for this, and I'm like, great, this is great, like this all said. And then 24 hours goes by and you send a courtesy email, hey, just checking in, yada, yada, yada. Well, the director decided to use someone that they already worked with before. And I'm like, thinking to myself, why bother calling me if you're not going to use me? Why put someone in that type of emotional state where they're like now mentally trying to prepare for that role?
Right.
You know, like, oh yeah, you know, I can do this and I can do that. You know, I wonder if I had this line or this. And then like you get the, you know, they're gonna go with somebody that they've used before in the past, and it's like, why bother telling me that the director liked me? Why bother to? So that's a frustrating part of the industry too, is that like we wait for those calls as people that drive an hour in traffic one way and sit 2 hours in traffic on the way home to deliver 2 or 3 lines and or, you know, 3 pages of lines, whatever, and then, you know, you wait for those calls. Those are the calls you want. And then, you know, but the thing that got me was that it was like a month and a half after I had auditioned for it, I had like totally just, all right, I wasn't right for that, well, you know, whatever. And you get that call and you're like, oh, wow,
Right.
I was way off. And then,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Now, for someone like myself, now I drive 2 hours to get to Boston casting or Slate, whatever.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And it costs me money, right? So last year I went negative financially. I went
Yeah.
to so many auditions and didn't get roles.
Right,
I went negative. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Really? Is this can't be?
right, yeah.
Made me crazy.
Right. I mean, and it's so random too. It's like, you know, like I'll give you an example. I will try not to use agency names and all that stuff. But when you listen, when you read what you're auditioning for, and I go, oh, wow, that's nothing. You know what I mean? And it's improv. Like I can improv until the cows come home, and all day and night long. You can put me in any type of situation, and I'll adapt to it, or I'll make something better out of it, or try to. But you know, dress up for a certain role, you know, as a sports fan, whatever, and you go in and you know, you act like you're at a sporting event and so on and so forth, and you know, you get a call back, and so on, and you're like, how could I possibly not have been good enough to cheer on watching a sporting event? And then you see the commercial, and you're like, well, that's cool, but you really don't see many people at all. So
Yeah.
did I actually lose out on something, or just a day's pay?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's I think that's one of the hardest things to do sometimes is to put things out of your mind that you always don't think make sense, because it's, you know, it's just the nature of the beast. You always wonder. I wonder too, like when I leave a room after I audition for something, like, what could I have done differently? Like, could I have delivered that differently? Like, did I deliver that okay?
Yeah.
You never know.
Right. And in
I
truth,
mean,
you probably could, given a little bit more time to know what you might have, because they a lot of times they just hand you the stuff right there. Some, you know.
oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, that's what now, like, where everything is, like, when you get an audition, everything's sent to you and you can read it. You know, sometimes you can print it out, whatever, or you've got to read it on these, you know, mini phones that you're like, what is that? You know, I can't really make that. What is that? Jim walks into the room, pause, holds fork, like, and you're like, but when you're in the room, and like for me, like, I read what happens before my scene that I deliver the lines in, and I'm like, all right, like, should I be angry? Should I be like, you know, I get called in a lot for like my Boston accent and stuff. What I think is funny is, you know, I love Angela at Boston Casting, but I always get now watch your Boston accent, and I'm like, why am I here? You're calling me in for a Papagino's voiceover commercial. My first voiceover ever, I'll never forget this. My first voiceover commercial audition ever, and I'm in a studio like this, and I'm standing up, and I got the microphone in front of me, and the commercial's very like, it's like, you know you're from around here when you treat a four-way stop like a four-way pause. And you know you're from around here when you put rock salt in your pantyhose. And you know you're from around here when only Papagino's will do. Made fresh daily in Walpole, Mass. with the secret family recipe. You know what I mean? So like, I was supposed to sound like I'm from around here. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to sound like I'm from around here. I grew up in Somerville. I grew up in Malden. I eat pizza. That's what you're supposed to sound. And like, I could just remember hearing her through watch your Boston accent. And I'm like, what? So she's like, try smiling when you deliver it. I'll never forget that. And I was like, you know you're from around here when you treat a four-way stop like and I'm like, I sound like a moron. But, you know, and a lot of people say to me, my friend Mike Swanson, which he probably won't listen to this, but hello, Michael. He always says to me, dude, like your voice, like you need to do voiceover work. So every so often I go on his Instagram and I go into his direct messages and I'll record like a video saying like, do you know what happens when you have that 2-day itch? You know, and like I'll like say the raunchiest stuff to make him laugh, and he'll come back with, you know, I'm gonna record all these and put them together and send them out somewhere, and it's like, so I've thought about voiceover work. I'd love to do voiceover work. I'm sure. I go to a Thai restaurant in Goffstown all the time, and this guy says to me, he goes, every time you come in here, he goes, I want to tell you, because he knows that I work on movies, because I went in there sometimes after working on it, because I wanted something somewhat healthy. And he's like, you know, I always thought I could listen to you while driving cross country on one of my audiobooks. And I was like, well, that's nice of you. You know what I mean? And he's like, no, really, like, I listen to so many audiobooks, and some of these people, like, it sounds so robotic, but I could really listen to you. And I was like, well, thank you. You know, but I get it a lot with the voice stuff, and yeah. It's like, it's just.
Have you tried to venture into that at all?
You know, I did put a post out there not that long ago about, you know, about it, and I did get some response saying that there is voiceover work, but a lot of it's non-union. So.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and it is true. I mean, like, you know, there's a lot of people that I know that are non-union, and I forget that sometimes because I think they're phenomenal, but they don't want to join the union.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I would love to do something where, I don't know, what's going on with this guy?
Beats me.
Was he dressed in a Cub Scout outfit? Something like, I don't know what was he was pounding on the door like a.
Oh, really?
He was like, he had his face up against the glass like he was looking at dogs in the pet store. So.
Are you referring to us as dogs?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
We're cute puppies.
All right. So before we get into that, I want to back up a little bit. Boy, you dropped a lot of stuff that I would really like to.
Sure.
Talk to you about.
I don't know if I'm standing at this table or if I'm.
Yeah, don't worry about it. No.
I don't think I am.
No, I'm
not doing anything.
Nah. The table. So now you're from Malden. You were born in Malden?
I was born in Malden, Mass, January 27th, 1973, in Malden Hospital, and grew up in Malden. And the Beachview Terrace was where my grandmother Elsie was my dad's mom. She had a house there, and then my parents got that house, and we lived there for years. And so I grew up, you know, hanging around Malden Square, Maplewood, like, you know, all that business. So
I saw you went to Bunker Hill College for culinary arts.
I did. I went to.
How did that happen? Of all the schools in Boston that you could go to.
Well, you know, I always wanted to play like football at like go to University of Oklahoma and stuff like that. But like my knees. From all the stuff I did growing up, my knees were junk, you know what I mean? Like, I went to professional wrestling school, I did this, I did that. And
was I going to say hockey?
No hockey. Baseball was my first love, and then, like, you know, it's all the other stuff followed along with it. I boxed, I did this, I did that. I think I did anything and everything I could to stay out of trouble. But I usually ended up getting in more by doing that. So, but I did. I went to culinary arts school, which is, it's funny because my Uncle Rick, who's like my second dad when growing up, you know, my mom and my dad separated and divorced, and my Uncle Rick was like my second dad, and in some ways like a real dad. And, you know, I said to him, maybe, you know, I found my Bunker Hill Community College ID. You know what I mean? I look like I'm 12 in it. So kind of like this when I shave my face, but like, he's like, Bunker Hill Community College. It's like, not a lot of people knew I actually went there, but I did. I wanted to do something because I've always liked creating stuff and cooking stuff. So I went to Bunker Hill Community College, and I got like really sick towards the end of the like last term. It was just a certificate program, but I did work at the Hilltop in the salad room making salads all day long. Oh yeah, I worked there in the salad room, and then I went to work briefly at Turner Seafoods, Turner Fisheries on Main Street in I believe it's Main Street. Yeah, I think it might still be there, but when I was like 17 and a half, because I was kind of a rebellious kid, I did go out and get my own apartment, if you will. I lived in a giant, like, octagonal room with a fireplace. I rented this room from a guy named Bobby Laquadera, who is a musician and I believe related to Charles Laquadera, and he had a like what was considered a rooming house, and it was like I wanted to live on my own, so I went and I lived in this room, and I had a nice massive bed, and I set it up like almost like a college apartment, you know what I mean? And then I used to paint houses growing up, so it was one of the things I did, and the guy that I painted houses with, and then we kind of started a small business together painting houses. We painted this house for a real estate agent in Melrose, and they had a studio apartment that opened up that was like beautiful. I mean, to me it was beautiful compared to where I was. So I ended up moving in there, and I worked 2-3 jobs at the time. I was a bouncer for 3.5 years, whatever, at the Palace in Saugus. I did a few different things, and it was great because I was like 17 and a half, 18. I'm on my own. I'm doing my own stuff because I'm an only child, and I never really had anybody other than my parents or random friends of mine to really kind of confide in or lean on, and half the time I just ended up making everything worse. You know what I mean? It's like injecting like bad humor in a really or trying to inject humor into a really bad situation at the wrong time. It's like, you see something.
So your social skills were a little rough?
Yeah, you see something is unfolding and you try and like break into it with like, hey, wouldn't this be funny if, and then it's like just not funny. So, and I was always the class clown. I was always the guy that like wanted to get a laugh and a rise out of people. But I had I think it was because of everything I went through, in my home life that most people don't realize. I mean, it was rough. I didn't want to listen to anybody, and sometimes I still don't. And I think it's just me being stubborn and me being an only child that always got my way, and I think that I've matured a lot more as an adult now, but I still have some of those things in me that sit there. I mean, I always tried to stand up for other people when I was growing up. I mean, I thought nothing of trying to kick someone's ass that messed around with one of my friends, or I remember chaining somebody to a radiator with a pair of handcuffs I got out of a supermarket because he got a little rough with a female friend of mine, and I got expelled, or actually suspended from school, and my dad kind of straightened all that out.
Was during your high school years?
No, junior high.
Okay.
Yeah.
You handcuffed someone to a radiator in junior high?
Yeah, thanks to the big boss man in WWF. I came up with this. He didn't want to take no for an answer, and I wanted to show him what it was like to take no for an answer, and it was just my way of. It's just me. Like I don't like when people I love or know get hurt, and I've spent my life watching that from a distance in a lot of ways. Even now, and there's not a lot I can do about it, but I try to lend as.
But it's working for you now. I mean, you can work that into, like you said, your characters and stuff. I mean, that's all.
Yeah. It is, and I mean, the thing for me is that I love being funny and making people laugh so much. Like, I like cigars, so I had a cigar on the way here. You're welcome if you can smell it.
I can, and I can smell when you pulled in.
Yeah, well, that's because I had the windows and everything open. But I I'll sit there on like a Tuesday or whatever night in Castro's. My friend Eric Kilbane owns Castro's cigar shops. He has a few locations: Manchester, Concord, Nashua, Keene, which my friend Scott Bemis owns part of that as well in Keene. But I'll sit there and I'll just come up with the randomest stuff and have half the people in there laughing their ass off. That's what I like to do. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, in a way, it's like a defense mechanism. I've spent my whole life being a larger guy, so like, you know, I get it. Like I've lost, you know, 60-ish, and I've been maintaining most of it. I've had some rough days, you know, here and there with carbs and stuff. I've been doing keto since October of last year, and it's the only thing that's really worked for me. And you know, so I think that I use my sense of humor as a defense mechanism. And people will always say to me, well, why do you always talk about your weight like that? And I'm like, well, you know why? It's because I'm getting to it before somebody else can. So it's like a stand-up comic. They get up on the stage for the first time, and there's something about them that people know, or that they know that people will get a kick out of, and even if they shouldn't. So you got guys like John Panette, again, God, you know, may he rest in peace, would literally get up and talk about spending the whole day at a buffet and make fun of his weight because it probably made him feel better to make other people laugh, so that they knew, okay, he knows he's fat, he knows he's heavy, he knows that, so he's okay now. Like, we can laugh at him.
You remove the elephant in the room.
Exactly, so to speak.
Right.
So, exactly, you remove the elephant in the room by actually placing him in front of everyone. So, you know, I do the same thing. Like, I don't care if you know, everything fits me differently. I've got shoulders as wide as most doorways, and my frame is the same way. So it doesn't matter. I describe it like this. I've lost 60 pounds. I've dropped 4 or 5 waist sizes, whatever it is. I order my clothes from Men's Warehouse now instead of going to casual mail and spending triple the price for 1 pair of pants when I can get 3 for the price. You know, and I like nice jeans. I'm a sneaker guy, a hat guy, cologne, jeans. And now I feel so much better. Like, but even some of the stuff that I've bought that's smaller is still large and blousy on me. Like this sweatshirt, my friend Ruben has a Muay Thai Academy in Oceanside, California, and I wanted one of these so bad. And when I first ordered it, he didn't have any 3Xs in, so he's like, I have a 2X. And I was like, all right, great, I'll take that because I want to support you. You know what I mean? You're a great guy. And so I bought it, and I got it, and it didn't fit the way that I wanted it to in the waist area because it was too tight. It showed off my love handles and all this other stuff. So I told him, I said, you know, it doesn't quite fit the way I thought it would, you know, so on and so forth. And he's like, well, you want to return it? And I was like, no, dude, I'm not taking food off your table. I paid for something. I'll make it work. So I started dropping the weight, and then I started taking the photos with the sweatshirt on, and, you know, that's what I mean. Like, you start noticing things slowly. Like, I figured when I started this no carb stuff that I would, like, the numbers on the scale would just shatter and go down. It didn't work out that way. My sizes went down first, and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, weight, the number shows up at the party, and it's like, holy crap, like, I'm under 3. You know what I mean? I'm under, you know, 2.8, you know what I mean? So you're like, wow, this is great. But it's real hard to maintain sometimes, because sometimes I just want a sandwich. And or sometimes I just want like 6 slices of pizza. Yeah. But now, if I want a sandwich, I will get a sandwich in a bowl with no bread. Or I will go and get sugar-free wraps from this bakery in Salem, New Hampshire, and I'll make my own sandwich, whatever. But pizza is one of my big things. And there's a place, oh God, it's called Torched or something like that, or Burnt. I don't know. It's in Nashua. It's a pizza place. I kept getting Instagram ads for it, and it has keto crust and cauliflower crust. So I went there the other night, and I literally polished off this pizza that's. Everyone in there was eating the whole pizza, so I didn't feel bad. Yeah. Everyone was eating. They all had their own pizzas. Little women, big guys, little kids. They're all. So I'm like, I'm not going to feel bad. I'm going to destroy this thing, and I did, and I loved every second of it. Yeah.
Was it cauliflower crust?
It was cauliflower crust.
So it's like 5 grams for a whole pizza, isn't it?
Yeah, 5 or 6 grams. But they also have a keto crust, which is like a thinner. It might be made with cauliflower and cheese or whatever, but it wasn't as tasty as the cauliflower one. The thing is with that, you can add on whatever you want.
Right.
All the meat in the town, and it's going to be, you know, you're going to be okay. You might die, but you're going to be okay on the scale.
Yeah.
But I found that if I don't, I found that I restricted myself long enough that if I don't add in a little bit of carbs here and there, I go bananas.
Yeah.
So every so often when I go to my favorite Thai restaurant, which is Ubon Thai in Goffstown, don't know how many people care, but it's Ubon Thai to go in Goffstown on Mass Road. They're the nicest people, make the best, freshest food. It's the only restaurant I think I've written a review on in like 20 plus years because they're the most consistent restaurant I've ever been to. Every time I go in there, I order the same thing, it's even better than the last time. Like, even better.
And they actually make it, right?
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're buying the egg rolls and then saying that.
Oh, no. She makes, like, they do the shumai dumplings, and she grounds up the pork and the chicken, and it's a very thin, like almost like a Peking ravioli, but not quite as thick.
Ooh.
But it's like a thin, like, I don't know, rice paper maybe or something. But, oh, my God, with the ginger, the soy ginger, like, sesame sauce.
Yeah.
Wow. But they're the nicest people, and I wrote them this review, and she came out of the back of the kitchen to like thank me, and she saw my sweatshirt, which has Thai writing on it. She said, "Oh!" and she was so excited. And I've never been into a restaurant where the owner literally walks out from around the corner with your bag of food and walks you to the door as you're leaving and thanks you. That's what I mean. Like that's why it's very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare. So I try to support, you know, people that are quality people like that because
I love little businesses anyway.
Yeah, and the world needs more of that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But the keto diet is definitely not for everybody. To be honest with you,
it's high fat. Keto's high fat, right?
Well, yeah, high fat, low carbs,
like
and you can tweak the amount of carbs and stuff, but it's a game.
I mean, real keto's like 70% fat in your diet, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're like visiting paleo, or
Yeah, and I mean, like today I haven't eaten yet. Like I'll probably grab something to eat later on. I don't even care. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like intermittent fasting.
I love it.
Last night I ate, I had chicken wings with my buddy at the cigar shop. And then I had a small piece of fish when I went home at night. And I was like, all right, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
And then I haven't eaten today, and it's, 1:15, so I don't even
You try to go 16 hours? or what's your...
Yeah, 16. I actually went like 24 the other day and literally started to lose my mind. I'm like, I can't do this today.
Well, my problem with intermittent fasting is if I'm not busy at night and I'm sitting around the house, then I start getting hungry again.
Yeah.
But if I stay busy at night doing something like rehearsing or something, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
So I can fit the eating in that window.
Right.
But again, if I'm sitting at home with my wife and just watching TV, for some unknown reason, doing nothing, I start getting hungry.
Yeah, so eat pickles or something.
Yeah, good.
Oh, man, pickles, pepperoncinis.
I love pepperoncinis.
I could eat like half a jar. I could eat half a jar.
I got a taste for those when I lived in the Midwest for a while in Kansas. And we used to buy the jar.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
And Hannaford's has this giant jar of pickles, and they're big dill pickles, and I'll like take 2 or 3 out of there and just, that'll be it. Because I used to eat like bags of Smart Food popcorn at night. Like I would watch TV, movies, whatever, and I'd sit there and then I started finding healthier popcorn because I felt like I was justifying
Smart Food's not what you would think.
Not necessarily. No, it's not necessarily smart for you.
Right.
But it's tasty as hell.
Yeah.
They came out with lower calorie versions of it, which unfortunately it's like eating packing peanuts with some cheese, marinated on it.
Right.
But I started getting stuff like Pipcorn, which I saw on Shark Tank. They have that at like Whole Foods. It's like little small pure white popcorn kernels, and they're tiny, and the bag's about this big, and it feels like there's nothing in there, but literally I can make like a bag last like 3 days.
Have you tried like skinny dipped almonds?
Yes. Yeah. I have tried those. I've tried some other stuff too. I've tried some nasty tasting keto bars. I had one. I was excited. I went in and I got this Bang energy drink, and birthday cake.
I like Bang.
I do too, but I got this birthday cake flavor.
Yeah.
And I got this keto peanut butter square to eat with it. And I took a bite out of this peanut butter square, and it was like eating sawdust with peanut butter flavoring in it. So I literally looked around the car, because I'm like, if I drink that with this, I'm probably gonna vomit. So I looked around the car and I had like a bottle of warm seltzer, and I was like, I'm literally like washing my mouth out with it. And then I tried the birthday cake Bang, and it was okay.
Yeah.
But it's definitely exactly like yellow birthday with cake with white frosting.
It's not supposed to be in a drink.
No, not at all. No, and I get it. I think, did they do it for their birthday?
I think I had that by Bang that was like cotton candy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, please, really, I just want something to
like
drink. I don't want
Warheads or like I like the one Rainbow Unicorn, and I like the Froze Rosé or whatever it's called. And there's one called Champagne, which is like cream soda, which I loved as a kid. The keto coffee ones actually have higher carbs.
The Bang coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't find them as often anymore. Now they got all the branched chain amino acid ones sitting around.
Yeah.
CoQ10 and all that.
Nucleus and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can't find the coffee.
The keto coffee ones there are actually pretty good, but I drank one day, and then because I assumed everything was sugar-free in this line. And it is, I believe, but I turned it around and I was like, wow, there's 11 carbs in this, but it was 6 grams of dietary fiber, so that technically means 5 grams. Yeah, exactly. You know.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, man, I found this, so I recently recommended it to someone else. Yesterday I was doing to this amazing person that I'm talking to. I was kind of doing an infomercial with like the Bang Energy. I was literally, because we're going back and forth through FaceTime, and I'm like, so this is the Bang Energy birthday cake, and it's not so great, but and she was like, well, I've never tried the Bang Energy drinks. So this morning on the way to work, she got a Rainbow Unicorn one. I don't know how that panned out yet, because she knows I'm doing this podcast, so on and so forth.
So are your decision to lose weight, and this is not really what I had planned, because I really want to talk about the film stuff.
Oh, we will. But yeah.
Was that because of health reasons, or were you just like, you wake up one day and, you know what, I'm just tired of being overweight.
All right.
I'll
try and make it.
If it's private, you don't.
No. I'll try and make it the shorter version so we can get to the film stuff.
It's all right. I get time.
I told you just saddle up.
I get time
all day long, and as long as I get to my.
That's why I wanted you in. I know you had a diverse. You know people. I saw your again. So here we are, shotgun. I saw your Eddie Money photo.
Yes. Yeah.
You know a lot of people.
I mean, I know a lot of people, but again, part of that was from the networking. I obviously, it's a Kevin James thing. I became friends with a gentleman named John Blenn, who is really good friends with Kevin, and we became friends on social media, and I think he's a great guy. He's well liked. He's a great friend. He's a great person, and he was really close to Eddie Money. And I have loved Eddie Money since I was a kid, and I loved that from what I understand, Eddie sang at Kevin James's wedding, and so this whole thing, and Kevin's had him on the show, and usually there's an Eddie Money song somewhere worked into the soundtrack nice. Somewhere, and I love stuff like that. I as much as people like to talk trash about celebrities not catering to their fans or the media and all this other stuff, I never had that issue, and anybody that keeps working consistently and takes care of their friends and family that much does not deserve to be trashed by anybody in the media. If someone doesn't want to take a picture with you, that's their obligation. But don't take it upon yourself to then go, well, this person is horrible, and this person is this, and this person is that. I'm going to give you an example. And on the last movie that I was working on...
Hubie?
Hubie, yeah. I had people screaming out Kevin's name when I showed up on set, and there was,
because you looked like him?
Because I was exactly dressed like him, and yes, so it was a day of double work in a scene with Adam, and they were
wanted to be in there,
yelling out my name, Kevin's name, whatever, and I would just wave and nod and say, hey, how are you? Just kind of just going along with it. And it was me and one of the PAs, or we were walking. They dropped us off on one side of town, and we had to walk through town. Now we're walking through all the extras, all the people that don't like you because you're doing stuff that they're not doing, and all the people.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I won't get into that because honestly, it's just not worth it. There's going to be somebody that doesn't like you in every walk of life, no matter what you do for a living or whatever.
I know,
but you know what, like. So there were people yelling, and you know, I was having fun with it. And then Adam was sitting there on a park bench outside this shop in downtown Marblehead with his mom, and he started yelling out, "Hey, Kevin James, I love you, buddy. I love everything you do." And I started yelling back at him, "Hey, it's Adam. Oh, wait, maybe it's Adam's double. Wow, you look just like him." And his mom started bursting out laughing. And then, you know, because they're trying to get me to this police car, and which is where we were filming a scene. So, you know, I'm just trying to like be social and not. So the people that were standing on the porch to the side of the car were taking pictures. They all thought I was Kevin. I mean, like, you've seen the picture. I know you saw the picture with the giant beard and the mullet and the sunglasses. So if you do enough research, you know that the difference between the both of us is very negligible. So I think I was 2 sizes smaller in pants from what I was told by wardrobe, but other than that, we still have the same upper body frame. We don't have the same barrel-like stomach, which it is what it is. Yeah, but you know, our mannerisms, this, that. I mean, I've watched enough and followed Kevin long enough. I can do most of his like facial expressions and mannerisms and his sayings that don't even matter. So, anyways, so we're filming the scene and people are taking pictures, and we're inside. I'm inside this car, and Adam's next to me on a bicycle, and so I won't get into all the whole scene because I don't want to spoil it. But so I get out of the car for some air, and there's people taking pictures, and I'm like, "You want a picture?" And he comes over and took a picture with me, and I said, "Listen, I don't want to break your heart, but I'm not Kevin." And she was like, "Oh my God!" And I was like, I know, I get it." And it, like, you know, then everybody else wanted to take pictures, and then so day of filming is done. We're walking towards the police barricade, and that same gentleman is standing there. And he's yelling out, "Kevin, I'm your biggest fan, yada, yada, yada. There's a woman there with a baby," and, you know, so on and so forth. So the girl, Jill, that was handling second team that day was with me, and we were trying to walk to the van. And I just, the look on this guy's face, I was like, I have to make this happen. So I said, "Hey, buddy, how are you? You want to take a picture?" And he said, please, I'm your biggest fan. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I put my bag down, and I've got my arm around his back, which was very damp that day, and it was only 75 degrees out. But he's shaking, and he's trying to take the photo. And I said, you know, he's very nervous, and I said to the girls, you mind taking the photo? So he took the photo, and then like a couple of other people wanted photos. But I didn't want to break this guy's heart and say, I'm not Kevin, but I'll take a photo with you. I just wanted to make his day. Yeah. So I did that. I accomplished that. And then this woman wants to take a photo with her baby. So I said, all right, fine. I leaned in and I said, listen, I'll take all the photos you want, but I'm not Kevin. She goes, oh my God, I don't even care. I never would have known. And I'm like, I just want to know. I just want you to know that that's just the way that it is. And I didn't want to disappoint this guy. So she took some pictures with me. And then we were walking back to the van, and the girl, Jill, who was amazing and treated me amazingly that day, she was like, that was amazing. And I'm like, what? She goes, that was just awesome. So for me, doing stuff like that is why I'm here. If I can't make other people happy, even if I'm pretending to be someone else, that's what I'm doing. I'm pretending to be somebody else. So why am I going to disappoint someone? And he's gotten enough bad press in different areas in the media for not being nice to his fans and so on, which I never had that problem with him, ever. I mean, we took some really nice pictures together on Grown Ups 2. Adam took some of them, and like that was never, ever an issue with me. So I never experienced these things that I've read. And I don't want to believe those things because I didn't see that personal side of him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
good for you.
He was always a great guy to me, so I am not going to tarnish his reputation by people thinking I'm him. All it takes is the wrong person, or the right person rather, filming you being a jerk to someone on set, and that's it. Like, you know, Kevin James is, you know, jerk to fans on set. No way, I wasn't going to do that, and you know, that's just.
Are they still filming that now?
No, that ended at like August 29th,
yeah.
But back to what you were saying real quickly anyways with the Eddie Money thing, like John Glenn made that happen for me. You know, I know he's good friends with Eddie, and he got us in for the concert. We stood right in front of the stage, watched Eddie play his saxophone, and you know, I love Eddie. His mannerisms reminded me so much of Rodney Dangerfield that night, and I love Rodney Dangerfield too. And it was huge for me. It was a big deal that, you know, someone as nice as John, you know, did something that nice. And then Eddie, you know, we went back and talked to him afterwards. He took some pictures with me, my uncle, and Michael Palumbo. I'm sorry if I messed your name up, Sausage. But you know, it's not a matter of knowing people. It's you know, I've met some really great people because of this industry. And you know, whether or not we've actually met as friends or in, you know, ever hung out, you know, there are things that will always affect me that when I see that things affect them. So, you know, Eddie's passing, I know he meant a lot to John, and you know, anytime John posts pictures of him, my heart breaks for him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know, it's like those are the things that you have to know when you have quality people in your life, whether or not they're at a distance or whether they're right next to you. And I think that a lot of people take that for granted. And I would rather, no, I'm not a perfect person. I'm never going to be a perfect person. And I know there's tons of people that don't like me. And honestly, yes, I care. Unfortunately, I care because I'm a people pleaser. But in some ways, I don't. Because I did something recently. I started posting Instagram stories. And I notice all the people that look at my Instagram stories and all the stuff that I put in there, pictures, I put music to the pictures. I notice, and then I post on my actual posts, the picture. And the number of people that are in your story, like I could have 100+ people view my stories. None of those, not none of those, but maybe 70% of those people are nowhere to be found liking my pictures, but they're watching my stories. So what does that mean? You don't like me, so what does that make you a fan? You're a fan, so you want to see what I'm doing, but you don't want to like it or approve of it. It's kind of like a little experiment that I did. And I recently told somebody else this too, that like if you look in your stories, or if you post certain content, look at the number of people that like these photos over those photos. So if I post a picture of a turkey sandwich I made, people love food. They're gonna, you know, I'll get 40, 50, 30, whatever likes on it. But if you post like a picture of something that other people did, no one likes it, or you get like 10 likes, and it's like, okay, I see how it is. So it's like when you post on Facebook, if you post, hey, I'm working on a movie today, or you know, just finished working on this movie, 70, 80, 90, 100 people or more come out of the woodwork and start liking it. And half the time, those people never talk to you any other time unless you're doing something good. Yeah. So, and that goes back to what we said earlier with the set stuff. I had somebody add me to social media and then kept asking me all the time, you know, can you put in a good word for me? Can you put in a good word for me? And I'm like, listen, I started out by filling my name and everything out on a website, and I added some photos, and that's how I started. So if you want me to help you do that, I will help you do that. But if you think I'm going to go, I did help.
Skip the middle.
I did help somebody. I did help somebody out getting a job doing stand-in work for Peter Dinklage, and because I thought it was well deserved, and he did a great job. I will not mention any names.
That's different, though, than them begging you to get them.
Absolutely. No, I did it. I submitted pictures of him. They loved it. They brought him on for 9 days, and he did amazing. First time ever. Everyone loved him. His attitude was great. He worked, you know, his regular job, satellite through computer and everything, and hotel a couple nights, and then commuted home from, you know, Sharon, Mass, and everywhere else that we filmed, you know. And they put me in a scene with a couple of people that I know, which was nice, along with him. So
that was cool.
Well, yeah, exactly. But, you know, I mean, as far as helping people out, like, I will help anybody out that wants help with anything. It doesn't matter what it is, acting, like, you know, whatever. If I can do it physically, I will do it. If I can't, then I won't. But I'll be honest about it. And the thing with me is that, like, sometimes you want that thank you or that gratitude, and if you don't get it, sometimes you're like, wow, okay, did I make the right choice? Yeah. So when people bug me or say, can you help me with this, or can you help me with maybe an ulterior motive, like, all right, well, you know, I've always thought you were cute, but can you get me in on this movie with Mark Wahlberg, or can you get me in on this movie? And I'm like, seriously, dude? You know what I mean? Like, I just think
I remember not to ask you.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, but I mean, after I posted the scenes, I have my updated reel that Ian Lyons, who's a phenomenal actor, if you know who Ian is.
I know.
Ian Lyons, yeah. But you should follow him on Instagram and Facebook. He's a phenomenal actor. He's a great person.
Local?
Yeah. Well, he lives in Connecticut now, but he did live in New Hampshire. But he did my acting reel, and he did my clips. And I had several people that were asking me, you know, would you want to do a scene with me for, like, my reel? And it's like, that's flattering. And I would love to. Like, anytime anyone wants any type of help like that, I don't care. Yeah. Whatever you want me to do, I will do it as long as it's within reason.
What made you begin to do a film? What, if you weren't in high school or college doing theater, one day you wake up and you wanna. You said you filled out the form.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, I mean, this came about from growing up wanting to be like the class clown and wanting to entertain people and make people laugh. So when I started seeing, like, you know, stuff in the paper, like, you know, be an extra in a movie or do this or do that, and then, you know, you go to bostoncasting.com or you go here or there, you know, there's bostoncasting.com was like the website to go to, like, constantly for, you know, all the stuff. And, you know, now there's several casting agencies out there, and you know, everybody signs up here or there or, you know, whatever. So I went and I signed up and I submitted a few photos, and then I started getting emails for non-union stuff, non-union commercials, non-union this. At the time, I was working in the EMS field. I was transporting patients back and forth to dialysis, to cancer treatments, to this, to that, and everything else. And I loved it because I love helping people. Again, goes back to loving to help people. Right. But I was increasingly gaining lots of weight, and this is part of where we can add both in here. I was gaining lots of weight, and I couldn't. And I was always like a big, strong guy. I always loved, you know, being a big, strong guy and all that. But I was gaining weight that, like, I couldn't explain. And then, you know, long story short, I did my first TV commercial for St. Mary's Bank, which is probably still out there on Google or YouTube or wherever. I did my first St. Mary's Bank commercial at just literally like a smidge under 400 pounds.
You were that big?
Yeah, if you research, you'll see there's some photos in there. But I ballooned up to like 398. I was probably over for it sometimes, but didn't know what was going on. So, interestingly enough, I was with this company. I won't name names, but I was with this company, and I for 3.5 years, I loved the people that worked there. I made great friends working there. I had requested some time off for an event that I had paid for weeks in advance, and the person I requested it off with went on vacation, and the other people didn't know about it. So when that night came and they wanted me to stay super late that night, and I couldn't because I had an event I had to go to that was paid for, and I was basically berated over the radio and over cell phone, and said, well, you know, I don't care if you have Red Sox World Series tickets, you're not leaving. And I'm like, oh, well, actually I am. I requested this, you know, 2 weeks ago, and I'm sorry that there was no communication between you and the other supervisor, but I need to go. And basically he fired me over the phone while I'm still on the job. Jeez. In a work vehicle. So I drove back, still washed my truck because that's the type of person I am, and then left, and that was it. And then shortly after that, I was diagnosed with carcinoid tumor cancer in my intestines. So now we figured out why I was gaining lots of weight and couldn't lose it. I had a softball-sized tumor in my intestines that they had to take out 5 feet of my intestines, the tumor, my appendix, 32 lymph nodes, and left me with like 60-something staples in my stomach, going from mid-stomach all the way down to my belly button, around and down. So that changed my life for a while. 10 years now. Yeah. So that changed my life for
a bit.
Yeah, for a while. Yeah. And I quickly started losing the weight because with the shortening of my intestines and the ileum and all this other stuff, that it was all explained to me, but when they...
Well, your absorption changed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was we went to the emergency room, and they said, oh, you just have an ulcer or something. So here, take some, like, whatever it is. What's that stuff? They're the blue pills. Prilosec. Yeah, take some. So I went home from the emergency room after this excruciating pain, and I was diarrhea, constantly vomiting and all this stuff. They're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I've never heard of that before for an ulcer, like just stomach pain, sure. So I went home, and I ate a small amount of white rice, and I took the Prilosec. And I ended up curled up on the floor in the fetal position in excruciating pain. Went back to the emergency room. They put me through a CAT scan and said, you're going in for surgery. So I was in the hospital for like 10 days or so.
Had anything ruptured?
No, they just apparently didn't diagnose it properly the first time. So they did a CAT scan, yeah. And they said, you're going to be going in for surgery. So here's the interesting part. So first they gave me, I'm in the hospital room, and we're all waiting to find out what's going on. So they bring in the stuff that they give you to drink for a colonoscopy. I was already having no problems going to the bathroom as it is.
Yeah.
So I literally was drinking this stuff, and they brought it in a gallon jug. I'm drinking this stuff, drinking it down. It was like salt water or whatever, and I kept vomiting it. But some of it was in my system. So now I've got it coming and going everywhere.
Oh, man.
And so they just said, you know, the surgeon said, we're bringing you in for surgery. So they brought me in for surgery. They did the stuff, came out, you know, eventually went home after 10 days, and I couldn't keep anything in my system. So I have to take a special medication for my intestines. It's called cholestyramine. It's a cholesterol.
You have to now?
Yes. I have had to for 10 years, because if I don't, if I eat something the wrong way, forget it. So that's the gift that I have over not having a colostomy bag. So I have no colostomy bag, which I'd be very self-conscious of, but sometimes I have not so good side effects. So long story short, with that, I dropped about 30 or 40 pounds at that point in my life, and continued to slowly go down, you know, always being a bigger guy. It's like I say to everybody, thank you. I love that you think I look great now. I love that you keep commenting every 3 days that I see you on how great I look and how much weight have you lost, Doug, and how it's like, it's great to hear. But go to like Shaw's or Demoulas or maybe even Costco and get like a family-sized bag of Lay's potato chips. Open up that bag and take the potato chips out and throw them on a plate, just a handful. That's the weight I lost. There's still a big bag there. That big bag is still there, and I'm always going to see that big full bag no matter how much weight I lose. So it doesn't matter how much weight I lose, I'm always going to think I'm just as fat as I was before I lost the weight. It's a psychological thing.
Yeah.
So that's that, and so I put my name in to be an extra, and I ended up getting this non-union commercial, and that's kind of where it started. Like, you know, I worked with some great people on that commercial. Shannon.
Were you heavy when you first put in? Because it's amazing you would do that.
Yeah.
That you would not be self-conscious enough that...
You know what? I signed up non-union for whatever came my way. So I signed up for, like, extra work. And I auditioned for commercials that were non-union. And I got this commercial, which we filmed at, like, a coffee shop in Bedford, New Hampshire, which is no longer there. It was like a Gloria Jeans or something like that. We filmed it in there. And, like, you know, they were looking for a big guy with good facial expressions. So, you know, it was basically, you know, me and my wife sitting there, and we're in a room with other people, so there's other characters in the commercial. But towards the end of the commercial, I'm the focal point of the way the commercial ends. So, me and my wife, and we're not talking, it's non-union, there's bubbles above our head. She wants a minivan, I want a plow truck. So we're like going back and forth, and we're doing the motions like we're having a conversation, kind of like we are, we're not really talking. And then it flash forwards, you know, through the other characters in the commercial. And then the way it ends is I walk up and I plop down on the chair. I plop down on the chair, and she's sitting there, and she looks at me and like has this like smile, and I just go, and the minivan's above my head now. So that's how the commercial was. It was actually a lot of fun, and like I said, like Shannon Muse, who's another actress in New England, she played my wife in the commercial. And I was always self-conscious of, like, you know, well, you know, maybe I'm too fat or whatever. But the thing is that like, I didn't really realize how bad it had gotten until I actually saw the commercial. Okay, so I want your straight out reaction when you see this. I want to make sure there's nothing that is inappropriate that you're going to swipe left and right on.
Okay, I won't swipe if I don't have to.
But I want to see your reaction, because this is the end of the commercial, and that's me.
I don't recognize you.
Yeah, everybody says the same thing.
My goodness, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I know that. Where's the camera?
Right
the camera's
there.
You can't really see that.
You can push that right up there.
You can't really see that there, but that's. Yeah, you still, yeah. So totally different.
Wow.
And even though I thought that shirt was baggy on me, it was not.
No
baggy.
kidding.
It was not baggy on me. No. And even then, that's when I was getting compared to Kevin. So like, I was doing the extra work and all this stuff, and I was so proud of myself. And everybody just made fun of me, even at the EMS company. They were like, "What are you doing that for? It's so stupid." And I'm like, you know what, like. How stupid is it years later, after I survive cancer, have surgery, lose a bunch of weight, that I'm now sitting next to Kevin James,
yeah,
and Adam Sandler is taking a picture of us because he thinks the resemblance is hilarious. So that's kind of where it was. There's people that always say, that'll never happen, that'll never happen. For everyone that says that'll never happen, you got to keep pushing forward and make it happen.
Right.
And when you do make it happen, what's that saying? Is that there's a meme and saying that goes around, like, make it happen twice and take photos. For all the people that say that'll never happen. Yeah. And,
Well, they say that because they're not going to work hard enough to make it happen themselves.
I know.
And they feel terrible that you would go and make it happen.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing, though. Like, I would probably give, even though it might be too big or maybe too small on some people, the shirt off my back if I could. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, sure, there are moments where I suck as a human being. We all do. We all have those moments. But you know what? At the end of the day, I buy someone a coffee behind me in Starbucks when I see that their face looks like they're having a horrible morning or whatever. Like, I try and make a small difference, whether I'm walking away from a door and I see someone that's struggling to get through the parking lot, and I stand there and I hold it open for them. And they're like, "Oh my God, thank you." And I'm like, "No, please don't run, because I wouldn't." Do you know what I mean? So like, I think that those random acts of kindness on a daily basis may not get you into heaven, especially with all the stuff I've done in my lifetime, but I still feel better about myself as a person for being alive still. And no, my life isn't perfect, but I wake up, my eyes are open. Every day above ground is a good day, they say. Yeah. So
you've had this great. Have you done TV as well as film?
TV,
television.
When you
like
say
Castle Rock or
no, you know what? I refuse to get into that, but I'm going to. Yeah. I was contacted about being
City on a Hill.
No. I was contacted for Castle Rock about being a court prisoner because of my look. At the time, I had a longer beard or whatever, and big guy or whatever. So I showed up for the fitting, and they had like a size 16 shirt. And I know there's another actor out there that may or may not listen to this that experienced the same thing that day. And they had like a size 16 shirt. Now, I, at the time, was bigger than I am now, and I was like a 19 at the time. So they jammed me into this shirt, and they button the top button, and they have me hold this plaque in front of my face with my name on it, in front of this like mock prison lineup wall, and make this like menacing face. No problem. But apparently I was too large for the wardrobe at the time, and I would have bought my own, because it was just like a denim or a tan Dickie shirt or whatever. I've had to buy my own stuff before, if that meant it. But in all aspects, like what bothered me the most was, being contacted about being, basically for the entire season is how it panned out. Like you would be on hold for the entire season of being, this court. So I was like, all right, that's great. Yes, it's extra work, but here's the thing. And this is what I try and tell people about extra work. Extra work is a great way to get yourself on set and to be a part of set and see what it's really like to be in front of all that action for 12 to 15 hours or more, depending on what it is. But I don't think some people have the right mindset when they go on set, because they think that the second they step on set, that's it for them. They're going to be the star, and it just does not work out that way. If you treat people right, and you talk to the right people, and you show up and you do what you got to do, you never know who's watching. Mm-hmm. I showed up to be a construction worker extra for a Visa commercial, and it was with Rob Gronkowski and his brother. And I showed
Is that
up.
where you fist bumped him?
Yeah,
I saw that today. I saw that picture.
Yeah, so I showed up to be an extra construction worker, and the director looked at me and said, "What is your name?" I said, "It's Doug Balakovich." And he looks over at someone and says, "Put a mic on this man." And he comes over to me and he goes, "This is what I want you to do." I said, "Okay." He goes, "You're supposed to be Rob Gronkowski, but it's his brother Dan. It's just the way that you see how the commercial pans out at the end." So he's coming out of a sub shop, and I'm walking towards with another woman. I believe her name was Deb Rosenkrantz. We're not friends on Facebook, but I think that was her name, Deb Rosenkrantz. Nice woman, because she was so excited for me. She's like, "Oh my God, do you know what that means?" And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "You were just made principal." And I was like, "Okay." Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I showed up to do my job. Whatever happens after that happens. So we're walking towards each other. He comes out, and he's got a huge sandwich in his hand. Now, you don't see that in the commercial, but he has this huge sandwich in his hand. So we're walking up, and I'm like, "It's the Gronk." Like, those were my lines. "It's the Gronk." And we just, like, casually reached hands out and fist pumped each other. It just happened. It wasn't supposed to. It just happened. So we reached our hands out and fist pumped each other, and then kept walking by. And I know on one of the takes we walked by, there was a manhole cover on the sidewalk, and I stepped on it, and you could hear the clank.
Oh, man.
I felt, but it was because I'm a large guy, Dan's a large guy, and you're trying to make it all happen on this small sidewalk in South Boston. So we did the take a couple of times with "It's the Gronk" and the fist pump and all that stuff, and the director goes, "That's it, you're done. Don't need you anymore. You're good for the day." And I'm like, "Okay." It still took me 2 hours to get out of there, but that's how that happened. So I showed up to do my job, and if you show up, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's a great point.
Yeah, seriously, and again, you show up, and someone that may or may not listen to this, that I just spoke to about something last night, will understand what I'm talking about. You show up, booked as an extra, and something else comes about for you. You know who I'm talking about, MW, and it happens. It happens, man, and it happens. It may happen slow, it may happen fast, but you capitalize on that. But the thing that bothers me, and I'm only going to touch on this briefly, is it's exciting to work on movies and commercials and TV in New England, in Los Angeles, wherever. But when I first started out, I was very excited about it, so I would tell everybody all the time. And years later, I realized that sometimes it's okay to let people know that you're busy or that you're doing something, but a little less conversation, a little more action, please, to quote Elvis. So, a little less conversation, a little more action, please. So, sometimes posting 75 times a day on different outlets, "I'm on set, I'm 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 on set." We get it, you're on set. We understand you're on set. You've been on set for 8 hours, and at least 6 of those hours you've let us know that. Like, it's
because they're sitting reading a book.
Well, no, but it's obnoxious though. It gets to the point where it's obnoxious.
I get it.
And it's like, any time that you get to go in front of a casting director, you consider yourself blessed. They picked you for a reason. The word "blessed" is hashtagged way too much all the time, and it's like, it's in the end, it is a job. So it doesn't matter, like, if you're showing up and you just show up and do what you're supposed to do and let it happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like show up and show out, and good things come to those that do that. And I just think that it's important to let our peers know, because I am a huge advocate in supporting my friends that are actors as well. I don't always need to be working on something they're working on to be proud of them.
Right.
But
right.
there are some people that literally, if you're working on something, that's a problem for them. They don't like you because you're working on something that they're not. You're doing something they think they should be doing, but they're not.
Yeah.
So, and that sucks.
That's a frail ego.
It really is. It does. You know what I mean? And I've auditioned. I had to remove somebody from my Facebook page recently and block them. And I really don't like doing that unless there's a real good reason. But this person literally would almost attack me anytime I would post a picture from, you know, a project that's been done or whatever. They would like attack me and basically be like, oh, well, you know, oh, it's good to be someone's double, but, you know, what, don't you want real roles? No, this is an older gentleman that's a theater actor and takes pride in his theater training, and I'm not going to mention names. It's just not worth it. But it got to the point where whenever I would tag myself in to Stop and Shop in Boston and Allston, most people knew that I was at Boston Casting, whatever. It got to the point where this person would literally only start commenting on stuff when he knew that I was going to auditions, and would literally say, oh, is it for this? Oh, is it for that? Oh, is it for this? Now, one time in particularly, I sent him a private message and I said, please stop doing that to me. There's no need for it. You're a grown man. Yes, I was there doing this and I was doing that. And then he went and contacted the casting company to try and get himself an audition for it.
What?
Yeah. And I saw that in his posts, and I was like, you know what? I let it slide. So I was like, all right, you're trying to get work. That's great. Everybody should try and get work. But you know what? You're doing it in a harassing manner. Like, I'll give you an example. If you're at an audition and you're in a hallway, and a certain person is walking through that hallway, and I think there's an individual named Mike that if he ever listens to this, we'll get a laugh out of this. But we were both in the same hallway, and we're in there for an audition. And this one actor, who's a large, you know, intimidating physically, or was at one point in his life, is literally walking around saying to everybody, are you the bartender? Are you the bartender? Are you the bartender? Are you the literally, are you the bartender? Are you the bartender? And it's like some type of like strong arm, like intimidation factor. It's like really, like, I looked at him, I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you the bartender? And I'm like, no, I'm not the bartender. What if I was? And I just walked away. You know what I mean? Like, I'm signing in for my audition. I literally, and are you the bartender? And I'm like, what do you care if I'm the bartender? Are you the patron? Are you the alcoholic? Are you the barfly? Like, leave me alone. Do your job. Like, do your job. Walk into the room, impress them. Don't intimidate someone else.
Yeah, that's not the place for it out there.
No, not really.
Oh, man.
So those are examples.
I get intimidated enough sitting on the bench looking at 30 other people who look like me.
Yeah,
without somebody doing that.
Seriously, and that's the thing, too. That's the other thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to get in everything that you want to talk about. So when you're in an audition, and I see the same 7 to 8 guys all the time. We're always brought in for the same stuff. And do you know what? It's almost the same 1 or 2 people that are working on that the next time that you leave. They're the one that's chosen. And it makes you wonder, like, sometimes, like, does it even matter if I come in here?
I know.
Do I really have to be, like, you know, a known, like, you know, comic or a known, like, actor?
Yeah.
Can I just be the guy that, like, delivers the lines and does it really good and, like, not have a name that everybody knows?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I'm sure that is in all walks of life as far as acting is concerned, with all shapes and sizes. I'm sure there are a lot of women that all audition against each other, and it's always the same person. So every movie that's filmed in Boston has the same exact cast with different names. And it's like, give somebody else a chance. Push for someone else rather than pushing for the person that you literally just cast in the last movie that was for the same, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I do. I was listening to an audio book or a podcast about screen acting, and they brought up this identical story where this woman was constantly being called in for auditions for years.
Right.
And never got a part.
Yeah.
For years. And so after a while, she finally met one of the casting directors at a party. And she said, I don't get it. You keep bringing me in. I never get anything. Why do you keep bringing me in? Yeah. And they said, well, because you audition great. You make us look good.
Yeah. That sucks.
And she said, well, that's terrible.
Yeah. No, really, it is.
But on their part, right? So they would bring her in, and because she could do these auditions so well and nail everything, she never got the role.
Right.
Now after that, she did because she called them out on it.
Yeah.
But that changed quickly. But that's the same thing, right?
Yeah, I had an experience on a movie. I don't even know if I want to touch on it because it's a sensitive subject. But I made a great friend out of it, at least, and I auditioned for a part. Never heard about the part. I auditioned for a couple parts for this movie. Never heard about the part, so I just blew it off, forgot about it. I got contacted to do stand-in work for one of the characters I auditioned for. So 2 days of stand-in work for this scene, and again, not going to mention it, but I acted out the scene on the second day, and the director called Boston Casting and said, "This is the guy that I needed here. Like, why didn't I see?" So he watched me act it out. People were clapping. There's a couple people that know exactly what I'm talking about. People were clapping after I did. And I felt so good. And the assistant director came over and he asked me my last name. I gave him a business card that I had at the time. And I says, "Everything okay? I thought I did something wrong." And he goes, "Oh, no, you're great." So I was like, "Okay, great." I showed up to do my job.
Yeah.
They wanted me to act out the scene for the sound, the light, and everything. Literally from start to finish, like lines and all the way up to, it was just the stand-ins and stuff like that. And people were clapping. And I'm like, wow, and they were like, woo, like second team theater, you know what I mean? And that caused like a stir. So he called Boston Casting and said, WTF. And then I don't know if that caused some kind of problem between the Los Angeles casting director. Either way, this was told to me by 3 different people that were there, and I was apologized to at the time. But I would have felt horrible if I had taken someone else's job that was obviously chosen for whatever reason. And this person's a great actor. He became a great friend, and we had a conversation about this recently, and it was kind of it got to a heated conversation about it, where he said, I called my brother and said I thought I was going to lose my job to my stand-in. And I didn't know that.
Well, it's not your fault for doing your job.
No, exactly. But you know what I mean? I'm just there doing stand, and it just happened. But I remember the time I went outside when they brought in the first team, and I called my now ex-girlfriend. I walked as far away from the scene as I could into the woods, and I started bawling on the phone. I started bawling because, really. So, it's a tough industry. It's a tough business to be in, and I don't always have the thickest skin, and I hope everybody that keeps saying that to me is listening right now. I don't always have the thickest skin because I take things personally. So with that being said, every audition I go to now, for the most part, that sticks in the back of my head. So every time I go to an audition now, it's like a cancer in the back of my head.
Man.
That but the point that he brought up to me that night, we were having kind of an argument about it, because I hadn't seen him in years, and he was like, what good would it have done you now? Like, what do you think it would have done for you now? It's like, you never know what it'll do for any of us. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly right.
For any of us, you never know what doors each opportunity will open up. But the fact is that door was closed to me for whatever reason, and the writer and the director of this movie thought I was good enough. You know what I mean? So that's things like that happen, and they happen to all of us. And for everyone that it's happened to out there in this industry, I'm sorry. I really am, from the bottom of my heart, that you have to go through the same stuff, because it is not pleasant emotionally.
Well, everybody gets a break somehow.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? But some people, like when they talk about Adam Sandler or Kevin James, they bring all their friends and family into every movie, and it's like, you know, every line's a speaking line, and you know, and everything's residuals, and it's like, yeah, you live the rest of my life just making cameos in my friends' movies. But you know what? That is good on his part, that he takes care of his friends and his family.
I've always thought that.
So, you know, but there are people that literally, like, belittle that all, you know, it's the same movie over and over again with the same, you know, 5 comedians, and it's like, you know.
It's just small. That's just being small.
I know.
Because I would do that.
Right.
If I was making a movie, so I would want my friends and family in there too.
No, I know, and I'll tell you that. What I like about Sean Allen and his productions is, A, the people are great to film with. They're fun. It's, you know what I mean? But everybody has their own personality. And I get it. Like, not everybody's going to like everybody. And, you know, there were moments where I just thought, like, out of nowhere that Mike, you know, hated me. And you know, these are 2 characters, like, that are clashing head, you know, whatever. Like, and that's my own thing. You know what I mean? And finally, like, you know, I kind of said something, I think, at the premiere of the final season. Or, you know, the screening at the front, you know, I kind of like, and we kind of like broke the ice through Facebook Messenger, talking about cigars and some other stuff and all this stuff. But it's, I think that, you know, everybody thinks that they're out to get them in some ways in this industry because, you know, it's the same 5'10", 5'11", 200+ pound guys that are auditioning for the same role. And it's like, you know, I'm going to hate you, I'm going to hate you, I'm going to hate you. But in all actuality, like, I don't want anybody to hate me. I don't want anybody to dislike me, but they're going to.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the nature of the beast here.
It is, but the Sean Allen stuff is great because he let me be as creative as I wanted to be and have fun with it. And, you know, it was like, you know, I wrote the scene for the final season on my phone. I was typing in my notes, and I screenshotted it all, and I sent it over to him. He's like, I like it. He made a couple of tweaks to it by adding in Jeremy Labrie as the officer, and that was great because me and him played off each other really well.
I like him a lot.
And he said to me privately, Jeremy, I'm sure you'll agree, that me and him should have just let it go. Like, should have just went and literally got the reaction from people. But I didn't know how that would. My thing is with something like that is, he let me write what I wanted to write, but I also do a lot of improv.
Sure.
So like the stuff like, you know, well, she thinks I'm messing around with Dee, and I'm like, well, are you? And he's like, no, but come on. And I'm like, I'd be all over that like a hobo on groceries. That was a line that wasn't written down there. So like, you know, Deb, the assistant director, was like, well, that's not in the script. And Sean's like, I like it, we're keeping it. Like, that's what I did. Like, so I think that confused a lot of people, and they're like, what's going on here? Like, here's part of the script, but then there's these other lines that don't even exist here. But the thing I like about that, especially working with probably a guy like you too, and Chris Doobie, is that you adapt to it, and you just go with it, and you're able to.
It's some of the best material that can come out sometimes.
That's it, because like everything is like, so it's like, all right, Fred walks into the store and I would like a large Italian sandwich with oil and vinegar and peppers, and you know, but if you walk in and you're like, I like a large Italian, you know, oil, seasoning, all that stuff. You know, you add your own personality to
absolutely.
it. So you read it off a piece of paper and you're like, okay, that's great. Yeah, it fits.
Yeah.
But then like you add in stuff like, you know, the frequent flyer and you know, all that. I mean, it's all, I think the natural acting looks better. When you're throwing somebody off their game by saying, oh, I'd be all over that like a hobo on groceries, and they're like struggling to try and like, mentally, they're like, well, you know, and you can see it on Chris's face at that time too. Like, I think during that scene where I was like, and I started laughing, and I'm like, that's what I was going for. So, you know, same thing with my firing scene and that, you know what I mean? I took it personally because like, my character is supposed to be a certain demeanor and a certain like, you know, just kind of like the relaxed, funny, fat guy that like, you know, just kind of comes up with one-liners and does inappropriate stuff like dropping forks on the floor to look at the waitress's ass or whatever. So like, when I got fired, I was still calm. But like, you know, well, I'm glad that after all this time, this is the thanks I get. I didn't want to tear the door off the wall. That's out of character for Kevin's character.
Yeah.
But like, and what Deb was trying to do is she was trying to like push me a little further to like really seem like I was really angry and blown up, you know, like totally like, you know what I mean? But I didn't want that for my character. That's not how you know, that's not my,
right.
That's out of character for me. Just like blowing up on the junkie in the kitchen and picking him up and saying, you know, you're the one that told me never again, huh? You remember that? Never again. And it's like we're going back and forth and like, you know, and then I get pissed off and I push the camera out of the way. Like, that's not my, so blowing up while getting fired, I'm just sitting there like, you know, well, whatever, like this is, you know, this is the thanks that I get.
Yeah.
And I slammed the door behind me. I wanted to keep it simple without like destroying the property, because I can turn that volume up, but I didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah, well, I think so this is I love this because this is the mechanics of acting. And I think so a lot of times they mentally, when they write, have an idea of the structure, the skeleton. And I love the fact that you talk about my character wouldn't do it that way, because especially if you've developed that character over a few years, you have a very good feeling for what that character wouldn't do.
Right.
Now, and while someone else might maybe take the door off the hinges, we all wouldn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think it's brilliant. And one of the things I liked about Paragods too was, and I was only there for 2 seasons, but they let me be Ace, and I could do. They knew kind of in their head what they wanted,
right? But
it was up to me to flesh it out. And I agree with you that fleshing it out is the important part.
Absolutely. I just think that, you know, where and here's the other thing too is that, you know, when I was, you know, when I did say something to Mike about, like, you know, why you, I guess he didn't realize that I had my hand in writing some of the scenes and stuff too. He's like, I didn't realize all that, and so on and so forth. So I was very proud of it. So I was posting the clips and saying, you know, I probably, you know, I wrote this, I acted it out, so on and so forth. And that, to some people, I believe, came across as showboating. But honestly, and no offense, Mike, like, that was never my intention. And I know I can rub people the wrong way on social media. That's part of life. But I never intended for it to be showboating. I intended it to be like when you have a new puppy and you take pictures of it and you show it around, you want everybody to see it. So look, here's this scene I did. You know, there's some humor in it and some seriousness in it. Like, I'm proud of this because I helped create it. And I think that, you know, I guess if people don't really know you as a person and know how calm and like actually down to earth and normal you are, they can take it the wrong way, and it might be, you know, the perception is, you know, a bitch sometimes. And I like Mike. I think he's so talented. I think he's a great guy. He's a funny guy. And, you know, that goes for everybody that was a part of Paragods. You know what I mean? Chris some of his stuff was hilarious.
I know.
I did some stuff with Chris on some other projects as well. You know, Paper City Burnout, and
were you in that?
Yeah, I was on the ambulance there where he had gotten beaten, and it was me and Rob Buckland, and, you know, he's all bloodied and he's got drugs around his face and everything, and Sarah Mitchell did a great job on the makeup and stuff and that, but you know, he's fighting with us, you know, going back and forth about not wanting medical treatment. And I like saying we got to let him go, and my partner Roy, it's Roy and John, he's getting upset at me, like, John, this is the 3rd time this week, yada yada yada. I understand that he doesn't want medical attention. Out he goes. So he signs the paper, stamps his hand with blood, and then he gets up and he falls out the ambulance, and and I'm yelling at my partner, you know, saying he doesn't care about his own safety, he doesn't care about his own life, let him go. And then Chris says, I think I hurt my foot. And I lean out of the ambulance, the stethoscope is around my neck, and I got my Boston hat on, because if you watch the movie, you know that there's Boston, like Montreal, like kind of thing going on. So I lean out of the ambulance, and I look down at him, and he says to me, I think I hurt my foot. And I say, yeah, well, then call an ambulance then, asshole. And I slam the door shut, and the ambulance drives off. It was like, you know what I mean? And that was a lot of fun for me. And I had fun working with Chris, so, you know, and I had never done anything other than, you know, than that with him before Paragods, and I never really was in any scenes with him. The scenes that I did before were at the Stumble Inn, and you know, dropping the fork on the floor and this, that, and everything else. So, you know, I think that with more you know, creative suggestions and so on and so forth, that it could have won another few seasons, and
yeah,
we could have had a lot of fun with that, and you know, but Sean wanted to end it the way that he ended it, and honestly, like, after watching it, I think that was the right decision, because it was perfect. And I mean, you know, for what it was.
Yes, right.
Now, this movie Nightmare Reunion that we filmed 4 years ago was supposed to be premiering, and unfortunately that won't be happening at Chunky's, but we'll make it try and happen somewhere else. I've been dying to see that, because that's
Is that a short or a full length?
No, it's I forget how long he said it is. It's considered a feature. But, you know, I play one of the characters in that's like tagging along for a high school reunion, if you will, in the woods. And there's a story behind it all. I won't get into all that, but, you know, it involves a killer and this, that, and everything else. And you know, so I was cast as Chris in that, and I helped write a scene into it that Ian Lyons did sound on, and I wrote a scene into it to establish my character as kind of an ass that was unhappy to be dragged along to a reunion. Now, if you've watched my acting reel at all, which you may or may not have, I don't know, it's like 3 minutes long, but it starts out with me, you know, and her fighting in the woods, and I'm like, you know, this is a reunion. Who am I reuniting with? This beer, perhaps your vagina, perhaps a hunter's bullet. I mean, I could surely be confused for a bear out here, no? And then it's like, unless it's Peaches and Herbs singing "Reunited" on the radio, I am all set. And she's like, you know what? I am all set. Pick it up, Prince Charming. And she, like, all the stuff that was dropped on the ground, she just walks away. I wrote that in, you know, like as an argument scene, and Sean loved it. And Ian Lyons said to me, you have to get that on a reel. I mean, it just, and nice. You know, and that's just, I'm proud of stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know, but, and there's a guerrilla commercial that I did for Berlin City Auto Group down in South Portland, Maine. That's on the end of my reel. That's how Ian put it together. He ended it. And, you know, there was a casting notice for it. They needed a gorilla. I sent in a self-tape for it, and they chose me to represent the Boston, New England market, which is New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont. And then they chose another kid from Maine, Eric, to do like the Texas or Tennessee brand. They had a dealership out there. So now I'm this gorilla dressed in a gorilla suit. I walk in, and you know, I'm sitting in the office, and the commercial starts out with, you know, how many stars would I give the Berlin City Drive Yourself Happy event? 0. And then I look back and I see everybody shopping for cars, and I'm like, just look at them. They don't need me out there. The cars are practically selling themselves. And then it's like, you know, it shows whatever, and then I walk out of the office with this giant sale sign in my hand, this red sale arrow, and it's underneath, and I got the gorilla mask in my hand, and this little kid runs up to me, and the name of the event is the Drive Yourself Happy event. So this little kid runs up to me, and I'm just supposed to drop the mask on the ground and like shake my head like I'm frustrated and walk away with the sign. And he picks up the mask and he puts it on his head and he goes, "Arr!" So I said to him, I go, what if we put in, when I come out, the kid runs up to me and I say, here you go, kid, drive yourself happy, in the Boston accent. And the vice president of the company loved it, so they went with that in the final edit. And I mean, that's what I mean.
Nice.
Like,
nice.
I And that's why I like being, creative and, making creative suggestions.
Do you prefer commercials over films?
Oof, that's tough. I'd love to do more commercials.
Yeah.
I really would, but you know what I mean? There aren't a lot of casting notices for union commercials. It's very rare. I've auditioned for some. I mean, like I said, I auditioned recently to be a sports fan, and I went in dressed in a Patriots uniform, Patriots jersey, backwards hat, jeans and sneakers, and basically had to pretend like I was watching a football game and make my reactions. Now, like, that's not hard for me because I do it naturally, but like, it is what it is. I don't know how many people exactly they chose. They lined up 5 of us in the callback, side by side, and the clients were in the room. And he was joking around with me, like, they saw my Patriots stuff. Obviously, the commercial's filmed at Gillette. It's you know what I mean? Yeah. So he goes, I'm guessing that you're a Jets fan or something like that. And I was like, well, for the right money, I'll put on a jersey for any team. You know what I mean? I said I'd try and do what's good for the project no matter what it is. So if I have to be a Vikings fan, I got to be a Viking. So I said to him, I go, actually, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan because I'm an Oklahoma fan. But, I was just joking around. So he's like, all right. So Tom Brady's throwing the ball. It's up 30 yards. It's in the air. He lands it. It's in Julian Edelman's, and you have to react to that. So it's basically what it was. And, I did it a couple times. And then they went down the line. And I watched the uncomfortableness in each one of them because they were all worried about what they were going to do. I just literally didn't care how many people were at that table, and I just acted it out. So whatever they all did, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to do anything over the top, and maybe that's what they were looking for. They wanted somebody who was going to go bananas. But you didn't even see much of that in the commercial. Like, I saw the commercial.
Oh, you did?
There's 4 or 5 different versions of this commercial, and in only like 1 or 2 of them, you actually see a few people because they're focusing on, you've seen it, the 5G Verizon commercial or whatever it is. And it's the guy standing in the stands, and you see like random people like next to him, and it's like there's one shot where you see a guy dressed in like Patriots face paint or like a mask or something. He was in the room that day. He's an older gentleman, and I'm happy for him. I apparently acted either not natural enough or too over the top for a sports fan. But I moved on, and that was it. Yeah, I moved on.
Well, most of the time they crop a lot of that stuff out.
Exactly,
anyway.
And that's what I saw in the commercial. I was like, and one of my other friends, Arthur, played a referee in it, and I think he said, like, if you look closely enough, here you'll see in the yellow vest, and I was like, I didn't know what it was going to look like.
Yeah.
Until you see it, and you're like, all right, did I really miss out on it, or did I just miss a paycheck for the day?
It's funny. Most people don't understand how dry an audition can be, right?
Yeah,
there's nothing there.
Right.
You go in and it's literally they just tell you to do something. Or they say there's somebody off screen.
Yeah.
Who's going to say something to you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
A couple of my toughest auditions, I think, to date were. One of them wasn't really out of my element. It was for the show The McCarthys, and it was like 2 or 3 pages of dialogue, and it was 2 different scenes together, 2 different separate scenes, and I had to memorize both of them. So I went in, and I still, relive that audition sometimes in my head. It kind of vanished for a while, and you didn't really hear anything about it. And I was told they didn't really choose anybody from Boston to go do the screen tests or anything, so it kind of vanished. And then Jimmy Dunn, the show came about. Jimmy Dunn was the character that I auditioned for, the Boston comedian, and Joey McIntyre was, the brother from New Kids on the Block, and the rest of the cast was great too. But there was that, and the toughest audition I've had to date, I think, was for the movie Wonderland, and even I can admit that I delivered half the scene perfectly, and the other half I struggled with at that moment in time, just because of the way it was. But it was Angela reading it with me in the room, and
it's funny. That's tough to have somebody, because they're dead. They don't give you anything,
right.
And they expect you to do all the work, which obviously is your job. But.
So the first part of the scene is that you are the police detective in this, and you're reading, you're on your phone at a sporting event or whatever, and and the dispatcher is giving you some interesting news on the phone, and you're like, it's a pretty, and then it leads up to the second part of the audition, and I was like, it was difficult for me because it was out of my box. But I think since that audition, I've definitely learned to get a grasp on that stuff a little bit better. But I will admit that there are moments that I go in and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally like did that the right. I totally killed that. I totally killed the audition, like in a good way. Mm-hmm. And then there are moments where I'm like, yeah, that was a waste of my time. That was a waste of everybody's time in the room.
Yeah. So this is a good segue, especially as we're getting close to 2 hours. I wanted to ask you, because I know you've done a lot of auditions and you've been on a lot of sets.
Yeah.
What lessons, I don't want to really call them tips, but what insights would you give somebody who's thinking about trying to make their way into film and commercials, TV?
Yeah.
How would you get them to start out? What would you tell them to do?
I mean, some people, like that gentleman that felt the need to comment on my stuff all the time, wanting to try and find out where I was, started out doing theater. And I know you've done theater. Mm-hmm. So, but, I've learned from people that theater acting and film acting are really two different animals. You know what I mean? You're on a stage projecting out to a large auditorium full of people. On a set, you've got a mic that's on you. You know what I mean? Like and that's sometimes too is like, I can get really loud with stuff. And like, I've done some serious auditions where I got way too loud. She was like, all right, that was great, but a little lower. And I'm like, okay, great. But I've never done theater, so it's like, whatever. But I think that, if you have that type of bug where you're, interested in it, it's the same way I started out. Just look up casting sites and put your name in and, upload some pictures and a bio and all that stuff. But keep it realistic. Do you know what I mean? Like, seriously, keep it realistic. Like, if you can't, ride a unicycle and juggle bowling pins, don't put it on there, because sometimes that'll happen where they need that, and they'll be like, oh, this guy juggles bowling pins while he's riding a unicycle. And then you're screwed. But, it's real simple. Like, I would say to start out doing, to be on a set, to learn what it's like to be on a working set, go on and do some days of extra work. Get your beak wet that way. I mean, that's literally how I started. And then, when I did my first non-union commercial, and that's the other thing, too, is it's not just doing extra work, but there's tons of non-union work out there. There's non-union films, and there's non-union productions, there's non-union everything. So you can start out that way. The way I ended up getting into the union was Chris Palermo, who does Pizza Makers. He wrote in a scene for me as a cigar customer that was lighting up a cigar in a restaurant. And it was Frankie and Bergamo. And he was interacting with me in the scene, and he comes over and he's like, hey, put that thing away. If you don't, I'm going to hang you from the ceiling like the other salamis. And I look at him and I'm like, oh yeah? That's kind of how we go back and forth. So, but Chris warned me. We had a long conversation beforehand, because it's speaking part. If I put you in this, you're going to be a must join. Because do you want to give that up, being a must join? So what happened is when I got, I did the scene, I decided to go through with it, because I knew I wanted something more than just being an extra.
Yeah, I know.
And I hope that a lot of friends out there that do extra work want more than to just be an extra. And when you're first starting out, it's an awesome way to experience some cool stuff, to be able to work on projects with great celebrities and meet a lot of people and network, make friends. And that's all fine and dandy, but in the end, I don't want to just be the guy that submits for every single extra work project that's out there. So if you're non-union, I would suggest, setting up a profile, getting, that all set up, and you start getting emails for different things, commercials or web, industrial stuff, like whatever. Like, there's a lot of it out there. And apparently there's a lot of voiceover work in non-union too, so if you have a good voice, that helps. But that's basically, I mean, it for me. How I started was I just put my name out there, started getting emails, and then I started paying the $9.99 for Agency Pro, and I started uploading more photos and more information, and I just field the emails as they come in. Now I get emails for pretty much all the stuff that comes here from Boston Casting and Agency Pro, and I submit for what I can submit for and what I want to submit. It's just the way that it is. I don't want to be in every large scene that has 600 people in it and it's ultimate chaos. Everybody's unhappy because they're tired, they've been sitting around for 7 hours, and then they end up going home. I like the small condensed scenes that involve a small amount of the cast and extras and stuff like that, and that's my choice. There are people that literally every day I see they're on set, booked another one, blessed, TGIF, thank God I'm filming, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's great, man. I'm proud of you. I'm not going to say anything negative about it other than, stop posting everything like, okay, you're eating an omelet at 6 o'clock. You're having a banana and, whatever. Like, we get it. You're on set. And, I'm proud of you for working on a movie set and you're finding your way in this industry. But there are people that I've watched that were extras on sets, and I won't even get into that because that's a whole nother hour. There are people that I've watched push their way through other extras to try and get visibly in front of the camera, and it's uncomfortable to watch that. And it's more than one project that I've seen it on, and I just don't think that's the way to do it. Like, you want to get seen, but do it the right way.
We had a guy on the set I was on the set of Daddy's Home too.
Yeah.
And there was a guy get called out for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, because they were filming from one direction,
yeah.
Right? And so they needed to film from the other side, and so he moved around to be seen. And they knew who he was. And I mean, they literally called him out and said, "You got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
You can't be on both sides of this crowd."
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
But he was determined he was going to be in it,
I worked a day on that in Cabela's, the sporting goods store, right after I had, that was just after I had rehabbed my right knee replacement. I worked on that movie. It was a 15-hour day, so that was nice. But without having walked a great distance with my new right knee, the walk from set to holding was a little unbearable. So I kind of hung back and talked to Roger, my friend, the set medic, Roger Dillingham, and Rasta Phil, who's friends with Mark Wahlberg, one of his right-hand man, and Eric E. So I kind of stayed there and just kind of made use of that. I had to walk back once, but it was, I just did what I did to have to get through the day. But, I see that more and more, and it's like, it's just so bad. It really is. Like, I heard stuff about Sandler's new movie, people yelling out, "I'm standing in," and the director got, like, angry and said, "Get this guy off." You don't need to announce to everybody that you're standing in for someone or that you're a stand-in, and it's like, you've got a name tag on. It says, who your character you're standing in for is, and I've heard of people doing stand-in for, an actor and, like, literally walking into the scene with their sticker on while they're filming, and it's like, I mean, if
people are amazing.
Some of us take it very serious. Some of us take it very seriously. And some of them, it's just a hobby. It's something fun to do. I take it very seriously, but there are people that take it more serious than I do, and that's, you know what I mean? Like, I have not driven back and forth to New York yet. Before I became National SAG-AFTRA, I had some offers to play like a British foreman or something on the blacklist that gets killed, and they were going to use me in a scene and my photographs. So I thought I'd be honest and tell them that I was only New England regional SAG-AFTRA at the time, and they literally contacted me, and I was like, I don't have the $1,400 to become, you know, National SAG-AFTRA right now. So, you know, and I didn't really know all the ins and the outs on how I could get around all that. So I emailed them back with my honesty, and that was it. So there's a couple of things that I had to. There was a show called "What Would You Do" with John Quinones. Hi, I'm John Quinones. This is What Would You Do, where they like set up this fake thing where like, you know, I'm playing a gay guy at a bar and there's someone that's like bullying me and harassing me, and all the customers around are watching this happen and they think it's real, but it's actually staged. So they want to see how people like you would react to somebody that was like bullying a homosexual. And that's one example. That's actually what it was that I submitted for. I submitted for that and I got contacted. I was in like the top 2 people to play and I, you know, it is what it is. Maybe they went with a smaller guy or a guy with a bigger beard at the time. I don't really know, and at this point I don't really care. But it's still things like that that made me realize that I needed to be just something other than New England. But then I went through the series of knee replacements and surgeries and nightmares, and so, you know, overall, I love being on a set. I love making stuff happen that most people don't realize is happening, you know, and I love being part of the creative process and making suggestions. I did that on Hubie Halloween to Alan Covert. I had an idea for the cemetery scene that they were doing, and I said, what if this happens? And he laughed at me. He was like, that's great, but I think, you know, as much as I like that as a comedian and a writer, I think they're probably going to keep it more simple. So the props master says to me, he goes, you remember that you gave him that idea, if you see that in the movie.
Oh, man.
So yeah, so I was like, you know,
man.
But you know what, whatever. I still got Alan Covert from Grandma's Boy, who's one of Adam's producers, and he's been in every movie that Adam's done. I still got him to laugh, and we had some good conversations, and he was a great guy to me. So I mean, that's the stuff I like to do, you know what I mean? I like to try and help and try and create things and make people see it from, well, wow, yeah, that does make sense, and that let's try it that way. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
that's part of life.
I agree. I agree. Well, brother,
is there anything you wanted to wrap it up with?
No.
Is there anything we missed?
Good. No, I don't think so.
No?
No.
I told you, you can keep that camera rolling.
I was just here to shoot the breeze.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.